Even if you don't lift a single dumbbell, there's one powerful ingredient that can actually help you rebuild your muscle mass. Consider this your geek alert. You see, as we get older and move into our 60s and 70s, something surprising happens to our bodies. Our muscle mass simply stops growing the way it used to. This condition even has a scientific name, sarcopenia. Let's break that down for a moment. Sarco comes from the Greek word for muscle, and penia means loss or lack. Put together, sarcopenia literally means a loss of muscle. Another geek term for the same issue is anabolic resistance. Anabolism is a process by which our body builds up new muscle tissue. But as we age, our ability to trigger this process slows down dramatically. When anabolic resistance sets in, building or even maintaining muscle becomes harder and harder, no matter how much we try. Slowly, we start to deteriorate, and our strength fades over time. But here's the exciting part. All of that can be changed by one particular ingredient. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what it is, how muscle regeneration actually works, how this ingredient helps overcome anabolic resistance and sarcopenia, where you can find it, and the right amount you need to see real results. And then we'll dive into something even more revolutionary, a discovery that shows this ingredient does far more than just help your muscles. So, what is this mysterious compound? Creatine. Yes, we're talking about creatine, the very same compound that has been studied for decades by scientists, athletes, and doctors alike. And no, creatine is not a steroid, nor is it some fleeting fitness trend. It's a naturally occurring substance, and while your body doesn't handle it in quite the same way it does proteins or typical amino acids, creatine is technically made from amino acids. In fact, your own body is already producing creatine right now. It's made from 3 amino acids, arginine, glycine, and methionine. Here's another geek alert for you. These 3 building blocks are combined by your kidneys, pancreas, and liver. Once these organs create creatine, it's released into your bloodstream. From there, about 95% of all the creatine in your body is stored directly in your muscles, with the remaining amount heading to your brain. So what does creatine actually do? Think of it as your body's fast-charging energy reserve. Whenever your muscles need to move, whether you're standing up, sitting down, walking up the stairs, or even just holding yourself steady, creatine is there to provide an immediate boost of power. To understand this better, we need to talk about ADP, which is your body's main energy currency. ADP stands for adenosine triphosphate, and every time your muscles contract, they spend some ADP by breaking off one of its phosphate groups, turn it into ADP or adenosine diphosphate. Here's the question. How does that phosphate get added back to ADP to turn it back into ADP? This is where creatine steps in. Creatine donates a phosphate group to ADP, instantly regenerating ADP and keeping your muscles supplied with energy. It's like flipping on a backup power generator that ensures you never run out of juice mid-movement. And this isn't something that only happens occasionally. Throughout your entire life, every single day, your muscles and brain rely on creatine for this quick, reliable energy source. Now, if our bodies already make creatine, why would supplementation become necessary as we age? Here's the reality. As the years go by, our natural production of creatine gradually drops, especially once we hit our 60s and 70s. With less creatine available, our muscles and brain are left running on less fuel, and over time, this contributes to the loss of strength, energy, and overall performance. There's another factor, too. While exercise is always important for maintaining muscle, most people in this age range aren't moving enough to boost their creatine levels naturally. When we were in our 20s or 30s, hitting the gym once or twice a week might have been plenty to keep our muscles active and our creatine stores topped off. But as we age, maintaining those levels takes more consistent stimulation. Even a small amount of resistance training, done daily, can help, but it's often not enough to fully counteract the decline. This is where creatine supplements come into play. By taking a simple daily dose, you can restore what aging has slowly been taking away, just like topping off your car's gas tank before a long trip, so you don't end up running on fumes. Of course, you can get creatine through your diet, too. Red meats and certain types of fish are naturally rich in creatine. Salmon, beef, and herring are among the best food sources. A normal serving of steak, for instance, contains around 1 to 2 grams of creatine. The typical daily goal for optimal muscle support is about 3 to 5 grams. But here's the challenge. As our bodies make less creatine, our dietary needs actually rise, and many people don't regularly consume enough of these foods to keep up. Appetite often declines with age, and even when we do eat enough, our digestion tends to become less efficient, meaning we don't absorb as much creatine from our meals as we used to. That's why supplementing with creatine can make such a significant difference. By giving your body that extra support, you're not only fueling your muscles and brain, but also counteracting one of the silent drivers of age-related muscle loss. In addition, many people consciously reduce their calorie intake, especially when it comes to red meats, because of ongoing concerns about heart health, cholesterol levels, and saturated fats. Others make a transition toward plant-based diets, believing they're making a healthier choice. In many respects, plant-based diets are indeed excellent and full of benefits, but there's a hidden drawback that often goes unnoticed. When it comes to creatine, plants provide virtually none. Creatine is almost non-existent in plant foods, and when you combine that with the natural decline in your body's ability to produce creatine as you get older, you're left with a noticeable deficiency. Your muscles are constantly calling out for energy and power, and your brain depends on creatine too. But your body's own internal production can't always keep up with these demands. That's why adding creatine supplements to your daily routine can make such a dramatic difference. Creatine is not some strange, foreign substance. It's not a complicated treatment. It's simply something your body already knows, already uses, and is already equipped to handle. All it takes is a tablespoon or a scoop of powder each day. No elaborate meal plans, no tracking macros, no doing math or hiring a personal trainer. It's a simple, almost effortless action that brings profound advantages. Personally, I take about 1.5 tablespoons each day. That's enough to give my body the extra boost of energy and nourishment it's been quietly asking for all along. And the effects of this small change can be surprisingly significant. You might now be wondering, how much creatine do I actually need? For most people, the answer is refreshingly straightforward. Around 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate per day, a single small scoop, is ideal. Creatine monohydrate remains the most reliable, thoroughly researched, and effective form of creatine available. You don't need a complicated blend or any sort of high-tech formula. You don't need to cycle on and off creatine, nor do you need to take breaks from it. Simply add it to your daily routine. I often mix mine straight into my morning coffee. Stir it well and drink as usual. The taste doesn't really change. Some people like adding it to smoothies or other drinks, and that's perfectly fine too. Whatever's most convenient for you will work. There's also something called a loading phase that you might have heard about. This involves taking higher doses, around 20 to 25 grams per day, for about a week to quickly saturate your muscles with creatine. Think of it like filling up your car's gas tank before a long road trip. This approach has been studied extensively, and in older adults especially, it's been shown to help speed up the process of getting creatine into the muscles. After that 1-week loading period, people usually return to the maintenance dose of 3 to 5 grams per day. And yes, those higher doses were very well tolerated. Participants in studies who took 20 to 25 grams per day for a short time experienced no serious side effects, no liver or kidney damage, and no alarming lab results. Instead, they enjoyed clear, measurable benefits: more strength, increased lean muscle mass, and improved energy levels, especially when paired with mild resistance training, like using resistance bands or lifting light weights. That said, loading is not strictly necessary. If you're not in a rush, you can skip the loading phase entirely and still get the full benefits by consistently taking the standard daily dose of 3 to 5 grams. That's the sweet spot for most people, particularly if you're not engaging in intense exercise. It's safe, simple, and highly effective for supporting strength and energy over time. I personally like to keep my routine uncomplicated. Each morning, I just mix a heaping tablespoon of creatine monophosphate into my coffee, get a good stir, and drink it down. You quickly get used to it, and the flavor of the coffee hardly changes at all. Some people prefer adding creatine to protein shakes, but I often recommend caution with shakes, especially if you're moving into your 60s or 70s. Many highly processed powdered proteins even those marketed as healthy, can be quickly broken down by your body into simple carbohydrates. This can raise blood sugar levels more rapidly than you might expect, which isn't ideal for most of us since, as we age, our insulin sensitivity tends to decline, and our ability to handle large amounts of carbohydrates becomes less efficient. That's why, for me, creatine in coffee is a perfect, effortless addition. It gives my body the support it needs to keep my energy levels steady, my muscles fueled, and my brain performing at its best. No complicated changes, no fancy supplements, just a simple daily habit that works. Moreover, protein shakes are a popular source of what are known as stealth carbohydrates, carbs you were unaware you were consuming. Many people rely on protein shakes thinking they're getting only protein. But in reality, these shakes often contain hidden carbs that can add up quickly. If you're following a ketogenic or strict low-carb diet, these hidden carbs can easily knock you out of ketosis, which is a state your body needs to burn fat for energy instead of carbohydrates. Ketosis can be delicate to maintain, and just a few unexpected carbs may ruin that metabolic state. Carbohydrates themselves are not strictly necessary for creatine absorption or usage, despite the common belief in the fitness and bodybuilding community that pairing creatine with a carb-heavy drink enhances its effect. In the bodybuilding world, creatine is widely used, and for years there's been a belief that in order to get the most out of it, you must consume carbohydrates alongside it. This idea comes from early studies that suggest that a combination of creatine and high glycemic carbs could slightly enhance uptake. However, the truth is you can significantly improve your body's absorption of creatine with other, much smaller additions, such as a spoonful of peanut butter, a splash of milk, or a dollop of yogurt. You don't actually need to load up on carbs for creatine to do its job effectively. If you're worried about whether creatine even works with a low-carb diet, the answer is a clear and unambiguous yes. Creatine does not interfere with a low-carb or ketogenic diet, nor does it cause blood sugar levels to rise. It operates independently of your carbohydrate intake, so there's no reason to fear it disrupting your dietary goals. One important thing to keep in mind, though, is to avoid mixing creatine with prune juice, regardless of what else you pair it with. Prune juice is high in carbohydrates, which can throw off your macros, but more importantly, it is also linked to digestive discomfort. Gas, diarrhea, and other unpleasant gastrointestinal issues are commonly reported when prune juice is involved. Another question that has been raised over the years is whether creatine stresses the kidneys. This concern has persisted for decades, and many people still hesitate to take creatine because of it. The confusion stems from the fact that the body naturally converts creatine into a substance called creatinine. Creatinine sounds very similar to creatine, and they are closely related. In medical practice, doctors often look at creatinine levels in the blood as an indicator of kidney function. Rising levels of creatinine can signal reduced kidney efficiency. So when some creatine users showed higher creatinine levels, physicians initially assumed that their kidney function was declining. Later research revealed that this rise was not indicative of kidney damage. Rather, it was simply an artificial elevation caused by creatine supplementation. When other kidney function markers are examined in detail, it becomes clear that creatine does not harm healthy kidneys. The body's conversion of creatine to creatinine is a normal, harmless process, and the kidneys can handle it without stress. Just because creatinine is a byproduct does not mean it's causing damage. This topic has been thoroughly studied, and the evidence consistently shows that creatine does not pose a threat to kidney health in healthy individuals. Similarly, there's no evidence of serious liver issues associated with creatine supplementation. The main side effects that people may experience are mild and usually digestive in nature. Gastrointestinal discomfort, bloating, and temporary irritation are not uncommon, especially when creatine is taken in large amounts or with certain foods, such as prune juice. Another side effect to be aware of is mild dehydration. Creatine works by drawing water into your muscles, which is part of how it enhances muscle volume and performance. However, this can also reduce water levels in other parts of your body, leading to a slight risk of dehydration. To counter this, it's important to drink enough water while taking creatine. Some individuals may notice mild gastrointestinal distress in the first week or two of supplementation, but this usually resolves as the body adapts. To minimize discomfort, It's recommended to take creatine with food and to divide your daily dosage into 2 smaller servings, half in the morning and half in the evening. By doing this, any digestive side effect becomes far less noticeable, and most people soon stop feeling them altogether. Again, dehydration can occur because creatine pulls water into your muscles from the extracellular space, which is the area between your cells. This isn't usually problematic, but if you're already taking medications that increase urination, such as diuretics, water pills, or certain blood pressure medications, you should be a little more mindful and consider discussing creatine supplementation with your doctor first. When comparing these small, manageable issues to the benefits creatine provides, the advantages clearly outweigh the drawbacks. Beyond its well-known ability to support muscle growth, creatine is also gaining attention for another benefit, one that may be even more impressive. Research indicates that creatine can help you gain muscle mass and feel stronger even if you aren't exercising. That's a remarkable finding, suggesting creatine plays a broader role in maintaining physical strength and energy. Of course, for the best results, pairing creatine with some form of movement and resistance training is ideal. This doesn't have to mean lifting heavy weights or spending hours at the gym. Basic forms of resistance exercise done regularly, such as using a resistance band, lifting a soup can or water bottle, or doing simple bodyweight exercises like wall pushes, can amplify creatine's effects. Even small, consistent movements make a difference. Including this kind of daily resistance training alongside creatine supplementation can lead to noticeable improvements in strength, energy, and overall stability. That is very important. Allow me to illustrate this in the simplest way possible. Let's take something as basic as your average chair squats. Yes, exactly. Just getting out of a chair and sitting back down again, deliberately, not because you need to, but because you're doing it as an exercise. That sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? It seems like such a small thing that it might not even be worth mentioning. But the truth is, this small, seemingly effortless move carries a lot of power. It strengthens the muscles in your thighs, which are among the largest muscles in your body. These include your calves, hips, and quadriceps, the big movers in your legs that give you mobility and stability every day. Focusing on strengthening these large muscles is crucial because they help support your metabolism as you get older. They're the ones that keep you upright, help you stay steady, and prevent you from falling. Every time you walk, climb stairs, get in and out of a car, maintain your balance, or avoid a stumble, you're relying on these muscles to do their job. Some people say, "You're being too esoteric, Ford. Explain exactly what you mean." Fine. Here's the process broken down step by step. Start by sitting in a stable chair with your feet flat on the ground. Cross your arms in front of you or, if you prefer, extend them out in front for extra balance. Now stand up slowly and then sit back down in a controlled manner. That's it. This is the same group of muscles we targeted in the sit-to-stand test I mentioned in an earlier video, where we were moving quickly to evaluate leg, hip, and thigh strength. But this time, instead of a test, we're talking about training, doing it deliberately and progressively. Try doing it 5 or 10 times in a row. For most people, this is a very straightforward and accessible exercise. And you know what? That's essentially what resistance training is. Just you in a chair. No fancy machines, no expensive weights, no gym memberships required. Now here's where it gets interesting. When you add creatine to this type of simple, low-intensity movement, your body responds faster. It's not just about building muscle. You're actively preventing the muscle loss, known as sarcopenia, and anabolic resistance that tend to creep in as we move through our 60s and 70s. By combining even these gentle exercises with creatine, you make it easier to rebuild the muscle your body naturally breaks down with age. As a result, you'll find that your steps feel more stable, you recover more quickly, and your chances of falling are significantly reduced. What many people don't realize is that these muscles also play a key role in how our mitochondria, the energy powerhouses of our cells, function. Strengthening them actually helps improve metabolic health and energy utilization, which in turn lowers the risk of metabolic diseases. Another benefit is enhancing the capillary network inside the muscles, what we call capillary refill. Why does that matter? Because our insulin receptors live in those capillaries. Most people don't know that as we develop prediabetes or diabetes, we begin to lose some of these muscle capillaries. Essentially, we're losing the space where our insulin receptors reside. That's one of the reasons insulin sensitivity drops. The good news? You can get that back with consistent resistance training, hip strengthening, and what we call resistance snacks, short, easy bursts of exercise spread throughout the day. There are plenty of simple moves you can try. Wall push-ups are great for the upper body. Just lean against a wall and push away, like a mild version of a floor push-up. If you're able, you can also do standard push-ups on the ground. Split squats are another excellent option. Again, just using a chair. They strengthen your legs while simultaneously improving balance. Light dumbbells can be added when you're ready for more. And if you move beyond light weights, you can incorporate heavier activities, like digging in the yard. Think about what happens when you dig. Hour after hour, you're grabbing a large shovel, pressing down with your whole body, and pushing into the ground. It's a full-body effort that builds functional strength. The best part? None of this requires a gym, expensive equipment, or flashy workout clothes. You don't need to push yourself to exhaustion. All it takes is a few minutes a few times a week. Some people find it helpful to include these easy exercise snacks even more often, 5 or more times a week, or even a couple times a day. Personally, I like to do them several times a day. Even if you already engage in more strenuous workouts once or twice a week, these gentle, low-intensity movements are the key to overcoming anabolic resistance and maintaining muscle as you age. The goals are simple. Keep your independence, move with ease, get out of bed without discomfort, and carry your groceries without thinking twice. Reducing the risk of falls is a major part of this. Many people don't realize how serious a fall can be. The statistics are sobering. A fall that results in a hip fracture can dramatically shorten your lifespan. Avoiding falls isn't just about mobility. It's about protecting your future. But beyond that, there's an even more important point that often gets overlooked. Muscles are far more than a cosmetic feature. They're not just there to make you look fit. They're your body's most vital internal safety valve, guarding against the conditions that lead to disease and disability. Undiagnosed prediabetes is one of the biggest silent threats, and strong, well-trained muscles are your first line of defense. When you work these muscles, you improve their capillary networks, giving insulin receptors plenty of places to operate. This helps your body clear sugar from blood efficiently and prevents insulin resistance from spiraling into chronic problems. Strong muscles mean better metabolic health, less cardiovascular strain, and a healthier overall system. Combine these benefits with creatine, and the results become even more noticeable. Creatine works best when your muscles are regularly used and stimulated. By pairing it with consistent, simple resistance training, you maximize its effectiveness and support your long-term health. Going back to the comments, I mentioned earlier that there might be something even more significant than your muscles. It might actually be your brain. People tell me that all the time. They say things like, I originally started focusing on my health because I was scared I was going to have a heart attack. But now what really worries me is cognitive decline, losing my memory, facing Alzheimer's, or even having a stroke. Why am I bringing that up right now? Here's the thing. Studies on creatine and cognitive function, the way your brain keeps your mind sharp and intact, have started gaining attention only recently. You might remember that we talked about how about 95% of your body's creatine is stored in your muscles. But that remaining 5%, it's in your brain, and it's there for a reason. Sometimes, your brain actually consumes even more energy than your muscles. Think about it. Every time you try to remember something, maintain focus during a busy day, or simply process what's happening around you, your brain is burning through energy. And under certain circumstances, your brain can actually demand more energy than your muscles during exercise. Many people find that surprising, but it's true. So, how does creatine come into play? Just like in your muscles, creatine helps replenish ADP, the energy currency your cells rely on. ADP loses a phosphate molecule when it provides energy, becoming ADP. Creatine steps in, donating its phosphate group and turning ADP back into ADP, essentially recharging your energy stores. You feel mentally energized and ready to focus again. That led scientists to an interesting question. What would happen if older adults receive a little extra creatine to support the brain's energy supply? As it turns out, some fascinating results emerged. One meta-analysis, a study that examines data from many smaller studies, found that creatine supplementation improved memory, especially in older adults. Yes, actual measurable gains in cognitive function and short-term memory. Not every single study has found the same magnitude of effect, but the overwhelming majority have shown clear, meaningful improvements. Some research shows smaller effects, but the overall pattern holds. The greatest benefits were seen in adults in their 60s and 70s and in people who consume less meat, since dietary creatine mainly comes from animal sources. Why is that? Well, those are often the people who naturally have lower brain creatine levels. Their brains act like a sponge, soaking up the extra creatine and putting it to work. And there's another interesting piece. During times of high stress or when you're running on too little sleep, your brain's energy demands spike even more. Research suggests that creatine supplementation can help restore mental clarity and sharpen reaction time during these brain stress conditions, whether that's sleep deprivation, fatigue, or extended periods of heavy mental work. Think of creatine as a backup battery for your brain, kicking in when your main power supply starts running low. Will it turn you into a chess grandmaster overnight? Of course not. But practically speaking, if you want sharper focus, a better memory, and fewer moments where you walk into a room and forget why you're there, creatine is worth paying attention to. Be mindful of this. Creatine supports cognitive function in a safe and reliable way. Don't overthink it. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. Each scoop of creatine represents an investment in your vitality, your strength, and your mental clarity. Over time, that means greater independence and a better overall quality of life. Creatine might just be the easiest, safest, and most underappreciated way to stay strong and sharp without completely overhauling your lifestyle. And if this information resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Type 1 if you're on board, type 0 if not, and don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you found this helpful, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It's the easiest way to support the channel and ensure you don't miss out on more insights like this one.